This is an Impending Doom Pathfinder, a build previously loved, but I honestly have no idea how it really works to be honest, and the damage is a little bit underwhelming, but it does feel absolutely amazing to play with screen wide clear, proliferation, pretty solid defense, and pretty good speed all around. Now there's rumors about needing to hit 4.8 radius on your curses these days in order to have overlaps using Cascade, and I do so with a reflected Calandra ring, giving me 64% increased AoE per ring for hex skills, and then mirror this ring with a Calandra's Touch. Offensively, this does use a Forbidden Shaco with a level 32, I believe, Impending Doom support, nothing novel here, and then a classic Vixen's setup. However, the defensive shell is more interesting, again not my own, but I'm using a modified variant of an already popular Convert to Thunder setup. This traditionally uses Font of Thunder, Zabaqua from a Timeless Jewel, and a Watcher's Eye with Purity of Lightning. However, I swap Font of Thunder for Sublime Visioning, which opens up my shield slot, and now I can go max block with Swollen. In essence, you want to convert all your elemental damage taken to either Chaos or Lightning. Physical mitigation still remains to be a struggle on this build, however you do have Endurance Charge on block and a max block shell, and even without this, it's decent enough for endgame content with about 21k max Fizz hit without most severe conditionals. It's sort of like playing Melding when you use this shell, but without the downside. Instead of having so much negative res and negative max res, you don't really need to build much res at all, only need to build Lightning and Chaos res, however you do need to build Chaos resistance and scale max Chaos. To do this, I'm running a bunch of cluster duels, two of which are Megalomaniacs with Born of Chaos, which give you plus 3 max res, and I'm also looking for a plus 1 max Chaos res on my Timeless Jewel, where the power charge would have been previously. Rounding this build out, I use Doppelganger Guise, which reduces chaos damage taken further, and in this setup it also applies then partially to your elemental damage taken, and Doppelganger also helps out a ton with Fizz mitigation, gives you a little bit of regen if you are taking damage below your Petrified Blood threshold, and then the recovery is made better with the Life Flask as a Pathfinder. If you're familiar with the shell of this build, the tech I'm about to explain is fairly well known, but I also run Replica Sword of the Divine and then pair that with Master Surgeon to help out with your cost of skills. Doom Blast is a really expensive skill because you're triggering a ton of different curses at the exact same time, and mana cost is made much worse this patch. So when you're able to run Replica Sword of the Divine, this gives you Eldritch Battery for free and basically infinite ES sustain with a permanent Life Flask running. I prefer to use a Saturated Divine Life Flask because I don't play with an illegal macro. However, if you did hypothetically do so, you could play with a stronger Life Flask, say an Eternal Life Flask, that gives you much more Life Flask sustenance. The one last thing I want to cover about this build is General's Cry with auto exertion. Now because I'm running Replica Sword of the Divine, Pergenesis, a Topaz Flask, and a Divine Life Flask, my flask slots are fairly starved and I refuse to drop a Quicksilver. So in order to get permanent Onslaught, I'm actually using auto exertion with General's Cry. This allows me to constantly use a War Cry with a fairly low cooldown and then pair that with the Lead by Example Notable, which is also on one of my Megalomaniacs coincidentally, and then I'm able to use a Reservation that isn't an aura, thus not conflicting with Sublime Vision, that does have some benefit giving me permanent Onslaught as long as I'm not, in my hideout or in town, which feels really great to have, even if it doesn't necessarily increase my DPS. In a whole, this is a really high QOL build with fantastic clear that I've really enjoyed playing but does really cap out and doesn't honestly have the best scaling offensively nor defensively, but if you are craving that feeling of nostalgia on a great clearing build and want to experiment with new defensive shells, I hope this build gives you some ideas of what you can do, and it's definitely flexible to go into a standard chaos casting setup like Soul Rend of Spiraling with Nimbus, or playing Forbidden Rite and having your damage doubled or even tripled when it comes to Uber bosses.